What is up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Weekend Roundup here on Touchline Talk. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the content I put out every single week. I'm going to begin with the North London Derby. It ends 2-2. Plenty to take away for both teams as one of the first real big tests of the season. And I want to start on the Spurs side. Spurs had taken 1 point from their last 6 trips to the Emirates in the Premier League. Arsenal had had their number recently. So, just in a vacuum, getting a point on the road, really, really good result against a very good Arsenal team. But there, to me, is something bigger going on here, and something that Spurs were able to prove in this game. This team is capable of going into a game like that against a Liverpool, against an Arsenal, against a Manchester City, against a Newcastle, whoever else you want to put in that conversation, and imposing their will to a certain extent, playing the game they want to play, and being good enough defensively to hang in there. It doesn't mean they're going to win every single game of this caliber. Of course not. But they were not fortunate to come away with that 2-2 draw. They looked, generally speaking, comfortable. Arsenal did not cause them that many problems. Where the issues came were individual mistakes and just being sloppy in possession. The Gabriel Jesus chance, you can go down the list. The mistakes didn't necessarily hurt them all that much in this game, but they are fixable. It's a thing you can clean up if you're Ange Postecoglou. And there's going to be some because they're going to be brave, they're going to be expansive, they're going to try and play. But this wasn't as much that as it was just bad decision making. If that's your big concern coming out of a trip to Arsenal, you're in really good shape. Again, they did not look overwhelmed or lost or unable to cope with what Arsenal were handing. Were sending their way. Never in a million years did I think we would be saying about that a month and a half into the season about Spurs. A Harry Kane-less Spurs. But that's where we are. To me, they are a clear contender for top 4 or 5, Champions League. Again, something I didn't necessarily expect. I think there's a real argument they're the 4th best team in the league. And to me, this was the game to prove that this is 100% real. Again, what that means is up for debate in terms of just how high in the table they can climb. But this is more than just a good stretch. There's going to be some bad periods as well. But this, to me, this is who Spurs are. This is 100% legit. Don't be surprised if you continue to see this. They went to Arsenal and held their own. On the Arsenal side of this, they just have not found a way to really click into gear yet. It wasn't a terrible performance, but it wasn't an especially good one either. And maybe if things go differently, you take your 3 points, you feel a little different about it. If Jorginho doesn't give the ball away, if Declan Rice doesn't come off with an injury, if they really just kind of were able to build on the leads that they took. After they got that first one, they had a really good stretch for about 10 minutes, and then Spurs really swung the momentum back in their favor and then ultimately got the first equalizer. This team has one multi-goal win in the Premier League this season. They beat United by multiple goals, and of course they had the game against PSV in the Champions League. But this is not the team we saw at the beginning of last season. It's not necessarily the team we saw at the end of last season either. But if you're going to be in the conversation with Manchester City, it simply has to be better week in and week out. they're not going to let you have this many uninspiring performances and hang in the title race, especially when they are starting the season perfect instead of the poor start they had last season. And so to me, I come away from this game feeling like Liverpool is the best chance to give Manchester City a run at the title, to really challenge. Because it's not like this is just 2 or 3 games. It's dragged on for Arsenal. And if they end up turning this around and start playing much more convincingly, then okay, you look at the stretch, you go, we still got out of there without a defeat. Pretty good overall. But I'm just not convinced that's where we're going to get with this team. The conversation heading into the World Cup break was not, are Arsenal good enough to win the Premier League? It's, can they keep doing what they're doing? Because what they're doing is clearly the best team in the league. The answer was obviously no. But now the question is, can they get back to even looking like that team? Because they're just not right now. They're clearly one of the 4 best teams in the league. They should qualify for the Champions League, no problem. But this has to turn around quickly if they're going to build on last season instead of getting into the kind of second tier of teams that are, you know, consistently competing for the Champions League, expected to qualify, but just not on Manchester City's level. And again, that's a really high bar to meet. But they did for a long stretch of last season, and they are just not there right now. The Declan Rice injury doesn't help either. You saw how important he was to this team. I was adamant about the importance of that signing. It kind of fell apart after he left. And the replacement, Jorginho, just had a rough go of it. I haven't seen too much about whether that was just precautionary and what the actual diagnosis is, but if he's out for a stretch of time, considering Arsenal are already behind Liverpool and Manchester City, that is 100% something to monitor, because this game for me was justification of how important he is to this team. If they are going to get where they want to, he needs to be on the field. They just don't have anybody else to replace him. The other thing I want to mention real quickly here, Atletico Madrid beat Real Madrid pretty comprehensively. Maybe not in terms of the actual stats, but from a balance of play perspective, from a who was comfortable in the game, who looked more impressive, 100% it was Atleti. That was a deserved victory. Really, really poor defensive performance from Real Madrid. Just losing runners left and right, headers going into the net time and time again. Didn't create all that much offensively. It wasn't a story of a bazillion missed quality chances. We're going to have to wait and see for what this means moving forward, because Jude Bellingham has been so good, and the one game he's not, they lose. Also, this game is just not the end of the world. It's a really good team you're playing. But I did want to mention it because it was a bad day for Real Madrid. Again, the team trying to catch Barcelona, and by the way, Barcelona is now back to top of La Liga. Real Madrid's right there. Long, long way to go. But one of the first notable results in this back and forth between these two teams, first really, really bad performance that Real Madrid got punished for in a way that, you know, Bellingham has kind of bailed them out maybe a couple times. But this was concerning. Now we have to wait and see if it's a one-off or if Barcelona are just going to be the class of this league again. Too early to tell, but big win for Atleti. A disappointing defeat that raises some questions for Real Madrid. That is all for the weekend roundup. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. I'll see you next time.